Hey folks, so this here, I'm on Leaf. You can see this is one of those rare few instances where I gotta open that. I started, like already logged in, not at the Adventurers Guild. Hi. I wanna go east. Yes. High Mountain Pass. Yes. By the way, that paid 30 gold from your bank account, your account balance is now whatever, is like the greatest thing that has ever happened in Tibia. Just like bringing a tear to my eye, and I got the hiccups. That's great. Anyway, we're here to go task us some teramites. But yeah, so I while I wasn't recording, I sorted my depot boxes a little bit, in the sense that they're no longer all just in one box. Now they're all in 5 separate boxes. Isn't that amazing? One box is for things that need to go to Yasir. One of them is for things that I'm going to, when I get around to it, parcel up and send off to Dao Dao. That includes Rashid's stuff and also, what's the word I'm looking for? Rashid and Jin stuff. That's it. One box is for like quest items and things I want to keep, and also potentially tools that I could use. Another box is for like quest type items, and one box is then. Oh God, really? Somebody's here? Are you kidding me? It's 12:29 and somebody's here hunting termites? Are you kidding me? This is a part of life, but it's not a part of life that I enjoy. Alright. Well, in that case, I guess we're gonna go to the other termite place. Yep, there's our person. Oh, God. How many people are here? Yeah, I'll let you guys take care of that. I'm not gonna bother. There you go. I wonder if they're bots or not. Who cares? I want to kill the ones at least here, since I'm by myself at the moment. This sucks, though. Really? Like, really? Ugh. I'm, like, honestly surprised that these spawns are taken. Alright, well, what can you do? Can you do? I'll tell you what you can do. What you can do is walk all my lonesome all the way up to the Darashia spawn. We'll kill that one too. Anyway, folks, why are you bothering Exori flamming them? The one I'm attacking. You probably are a bot, you idiot. Whatever. Whatevs. I mean, sorry, not possible. There we go. Alright, well, we're just gonna head to the Darashi one. As annoying as this situation is. Yeah, I mean, whatever. Okay, so... yeah, I mean, it's been... So, I made the previous Leaf video, I think it was 55. This would be 46, or 56. I made the previous Leaf video, actually, like, a while ago. But never got around to posting it. I've been kind of busy with a couple of things. Nothing like major, so to say, but yeah, I've been like moderately busy. Oh, just in case anybody's wondering too, the last video I kind of showcased off that 4x thing. I'm still doing the practice program. I haven't switched over to the real one. I haven't made myself rich or wasted $750 yet, so I just figured I'd give you guys a heads up on that. I bet if I go down there, it's just like instant death, so I'm just not gonna go down there. But I really want to. I do. Well, anyway. So, yeah, I've had a couple of things going on. The one thing I want to hit on lightly, especially since I have the opportunity while I'm wasting my life away walking here to Darashia, I think it was like 2 Leaf videos back, I was talking about those books I was reading. And one of them was the World War series I was reading. Dude's name was, I think, Harry Turtle Dove. So I finished those. It was an 8-book series. Each book was like 500 plus pages. And they were pretty big pages too. These were not like tiny books. I'm really torn on them. This is like my weird book report moment. But yeah, I'm really torn on them. I don't know if I could like in good faith recommend them to somebody. So that is a werewolf amulet just hanging out there. Those are like rare and valuable, aren't they? I think. Where's my all right, somewhere around here. So yeah, I don't know if I can in good faith recommend them to him. So here's my thought process, right? There's 8 books. The first 4 take place starting in 1942. I think they go about like a year and a half, so they would end, I guess, in like 1943. Or maybe even 1944. 44. The next 3 books start in 1962. And then the final book takes place majority of in like 2030 or something like that. Good. This one's not taken. So it's the first 4 I like deeply enjoyed. Okay. They were very interesting. Seeing this like conflict with the aliens call themselves the race. So seeing this conflict with the race, from the perspective of all these different people. Some of the people that like we spent some time with, I liked more than others. Which was like kind of strange. Like one of the perspectives is this Russian Red Air Force lady, and like I found all the parts with her pretty interesting. The German Panzer commander Heinrich Jäger, he was like an interesting dude. I liked him. But some of the other ones I was just like a little. A lot of the perspective is I'm gonna like mangle this guy's name. His name was like Mosi Rushi or something like that. He was like a Jewish guy in Warsaw, actually. I found most of the parts with him to not be like super interesting. I don't know, but for the most part, like I really enjoyed the story, and it's kind of written in this format that it looks like it was almost originally a series of like short stories. So you follow each of these like random characters for a short, maybe like 6-7 pages, and then you go to another one. And I liked that they were willing to kill some of the characters. So like some of the characters do die, which I thought was interesting. And it kind of like, the dude that died, for instance, he didn't die some like epic death. It wasn't like led up to. He just died. Like, he just got killed. So it was kind of, it did, in a sense, bring that, like, more, like, that concept of, like, mortality, where, like, your favorite character could end up just dying. Kind of thing. So it was good in that sense, and I did really enjoy it. And then the books end with, like, a peace treaty sort of being signed. And then we go to, like, 1962. Which was the next 3 books. So story-wise, the next 3 books were like just as good, and I enjoyed them just as much, I think. So like obviously history as we know it changed because we've got this weird situation with the aliens. So like the Germans, like the Nazis, were still there in 1962. And because like America was too busy, dealing with their own problems, the English, the British, if you will, had to rely on like Nazi Germany for basically everything because their empire was destroyed and like dismantled. So the British are more like kind of leaning on the Nazi side of things, which was an interesting take. The other thing was kind of cool was to like see the characters like 20 years later. But I feel like he botched that. Like one of the characters that it followed in the first 4 books was a guy called Mutt Daniels. And Mutt Daniels was he was actually the baseball manager, I think, or maybe the coach of this like baseball team that 2 of the other characters were Bobby Fiore, I think his name was, and Sam Yeager. So Sam Yeager and Bobby Fiore, they both end up going their ways. Like Bobby Fiore gets captured by the lizards, and eventually ends up in China. Actually, Sam ends up fighting, I think, in Chicago, actually with Mutt Daniels. But they capture some of the lizards, and he's like, he always read science fiction, I guess, and he kind of sold that to his commanders that he should, like, since he read science fiction, that makes him able to like expand his mind. Oh, really quick, just checking my killing in the name of stuff here. Okay, 81 or 79 to go. I did my math wrong there. So he kind of ends up being like the I think they called him like the lizard handler, because he was the one in charge of their prisoners of war, as they were. No, that's not good. I don't want to get stuck between three of them. So yeah, but Mutt Daniels stays in the battle, and eventually, like, you know, he gets promoted, and I think he becomes like eventually lieutenant. So, you know, and he fights in the, like, epic battle of Chicago and everything. And then, you know, like, in the next three books, they're called the colonization, like, trilogy, I guess. He's just, like, not mentioned at all. Like, there's just, like, oh, yeah. He gets mentioned once, to say, like, Sam Yeager actually like mentions him once when he's like reading his obituary or something like that, and he's like, "Oh man, like Mutt Daniels died. He was my manager," and that's just the end of it. Like, I don't know. I felt like they kind of dropped the ball on that. In the other sense, though, I mean, there were like a lot of characters originally, but like the Panzer commander Heinrich Jaeger, I really liked him. And they had him just die between the books, too. Now, like, they gave him a reason for dying. Like, Mutt Daniels just kind of, like, died from old age. Heinrich Jaeger, he had, like, a reason for dying. But he still just died, like, off-screen. And I thought that was kind of, like, a shame, because he was a pretty cool character. The German characters, to me, I mean, he was kind of the only named German character that was really important. But they had, they were interesting because, like, in the fighting, and like he was originally, when the aliens came, he was fighting in Russia, and like, you know, his forces got like overrun, and he had to like fall back, and he actually had to like work with the Russians a couple of times, and he kind of was like forced to acknowledge what the Nazis were doing to the Jews, with like the Holocaust and all that stuff. So he kind of had like an interesting amount of character development, and he was kind of like, I don't, like, it's really hard to explain, but he had really, like, decent character development and was just, like, an enjoyable and interesting character all around. And just killing him off, like, screen was just like, really? You guys just did that? You killed him in between books. And then he actually was having, like, I guess he got married to the Russian Air Force lady. And she was also a really interesting character. And like, they, for the most part, they followed. What was interesting was seeing this conflict from people who aren't mine, like, perspective. Like, yeah, okay, so I've never played minor league baseball like Sam Yeager did, for instance. And I'm not old enough to, like, understand what it's like to have your baseball career, like, not going where you want and things like that. Obviously, like, that's not a situation I have. But Sam Yeager is just like a standard, like, everyday American dude. Like, there was nothing particularly unique about him. Whereas, like, Heinrich Jaeger, he had that whole conflict where he's, like, part of this, like, evil military, essentially. Like, I'm just gonna, for all intents and purposes, call the Nazis, like, an evil military. He's part of this evil military, but just because the military itself is evil doesn't mean, like, all of the men in the military are evil. And he's, like, actually a good man with, like, a conscience and everything. I hate when I don't get to kill one. Likewise, I think her name was, like, Ludmila Gorbachev or something like that. Gorbachev. She was interesting because she's from this perspective of, like, a really intense communist. which was interesting, and she's, like, acknowledging that if she asks too many questions of her government, like she's like, well, why are we purging these people? They'll like purge her and stuff like that. So she like acknowledges what she's allowed to say, and her stuff was interesting too. So she marries Heinrich Jaeger, which was even more interesting because like her superior, she's like she knows that if her superiors knew she was like involved with a German, it would be like not only the end of her career, but she could end up just disappearing one day. And like the kind of the same situation with Heinrich. So he dies, and she's basically like, I don't know, I think in all three of the books she has like 4 lines. Like 4 lines. She does nothing in any of them. She gets like referenced a couple of times, but she doesn't do anything. And then she also ends up getting killed too. Like, but off screen again. Like she doesn't get killed in something. They're just like, yep. Well, so there ends up being another like outbreak of conflict between the race and the Germans, and a lot of nuclear bombs were used. So she was just in one of the cities that got hit by a nuke. Like nobody actually is like, we should go check and make sure she's dead. They're just like, yep, she probably died, and that's all she gets. Just like an acknowledgement that she's probably dead, and then they just move on. I was like, wow, like that was like she was one of the cool characters too. So I was a little disappointed by that. That all said, the 3 books of the colonization trilogy were interesting because they're taking like an alternative history. Obviously, aliens never invaded during World War II. Like everybody knows that didn't happen. But like for the most part, we were still in that World War II that we knew about. The colonization series has, like 20 years for the world to develop differently. And that was pretty interesting. And we did get some new characters. Some of them were like moderately interesting. Most of them kind of weren't. The other thing that was interesting with the first 4 books was that this was like a global struggle where everybody had to the best of their abilities, like put the prior conflicts away so that they could deal with this like much more pressing issue. Let me exit to con it real quick. And that was actually like a really cool mechanic also. And that was kind of lost in the other 3 books. And it took a very more like the Americans are the heroes kind of thing. Which, I don't know, like even as an American, I feel like I would be more annoyed about that if I wasn't an American. But it was like, I don't know, it was a little disappointing. Like the British were like a subset of Nazi Germany at that point. The Japanese were never very involved in the story in the first place. There was like one named Japanese character, and he was only named in the sense that he was like an antagonist to a lizard that was a prisoner of war. There was, however, a whole bunch of like Chinese communists that were in this story, but like Japan was like for the most part just ignored. And like, yeah, okay, so, and like I said, the UK is out of the equation. France is still a like occupied territory and part of the Germans. So I mean, like, yeah, it was very more like the Russians were like vastly inferior to everybody, which is kind of how they were, whatever. Because like they just don't have the economic might, so to say, to kind of keep pace with everybody, which is why they ultimately lost the Cold War. But anyway, so that was kind of their situation. So like the only real superpowers at play were the Germans and the Americans, and the Germans were like out of control, like cartoonishly evil as a group. It did follow an individual German. Who was actually like a former subordinate of Heinrich Jaeger. So it did like follow him, but like the actual German like empire, if you will, was like cartoonishly evil. So you couldn't even like root for them. It stopped being like a global struggle and more like everybody else is trying to like build up so that they eventually stronger than the race. Whereas the Germans are just like, we can take them. We'll fight them all at once. And then they did that and then lost. So yeah, but for sure the colonization books were pretty interesting. And then they kind of ended with the Americans launched a spaceship that they were like they're insinuating that the Americans are going to use this spaceship to in some way, shape, or form eventually like send Americans to the lizard home planet, which is just called home. So the colonization book ends kind of with this like sense that there's no like finalization, like everything's just continuing as it were. The lizards are still here, they're still fighting, they're not getting beat, they're still going to be here in the future. Everybody's kind of got to deal with that while like the humans are increasing their own power and stuff like that. And it didn't have a like finalized end at all. It was like very open ended going into the final book, which was book 8, called Homeward Bound. So Homeward Bound starts with like following several of the characters being like put into it's called like cold sleep. Think of it like cryogenically frozen. So that way they can like handle the like 60-year trip to home. So they get to home on this spaceship called the Admiral Perry. So they get to home, and Sam Yeager, who like somehow became the main character, even though he wasn't really all that interesting to me in the first place. That's the other thing too. Like Sam Yeager became the main character, but like I didn't really ever like him all that much. And Sam Yeager had this thing going on where, so like when he took the lizard as like prisoners, they sent him up to like Chicago, and he ends up like working for what's the like basically the Manhattan Project. And he meets this woman who was named Barbara Lawson, I think her name was. And her husband was one of the scientists working on the project. And they like sent him and another scientist to go like meet with whatever the American like command structure was to convince them that they had to hold on to Chicago because that's where the research for making like a nuclear bomb was. So he goes to the, like, he eventually gets there, convinces them, but before like anything could happen, the Americans that were working on the project were like, all right, Chicago's not safe, and with like losing power and all like these bombing raids and stuff, we need to leave Chicago anyway. So they end up leaving Chicago, and I think they go to Denver. I kind of can't remember, but I think it was Denver. We're just gonna keep missing this termite. It's been a while since I've complained about that. So he ends up like getting Chicago. I think he gets to Chicago at the end of the first book, and realizes that like the project had up and left, and his wife left along with like Sam Yeager. So he like goes to, I think it was Denver. He goes to Denver, and he keeps wanting to like send a message to his wife and be like, I'm on my way back. And she keeps thinking like, oh my god, he's been gone for like 6 months, he's probably died. Which, like, to be fair, was pretty reasonably an option. And he goes through like all these, like hardships and stuff, but he's all like, I just gotta get back to my wife. He spends like a couple of weeks like locked in a church with a whole bunch of other people, because that's where the lizards were like locking them up in their territory. And like one of the ladies was like clearly coming on to him, and he was like, no, I can't betray my wife. So he ends up like, he meets up with like George Patton, and they like, Patton won't let him send a message to Chicago saying that he's safe because he's launching a like counteroffensive, and he doesn't want anything to be leaked. So then he ultimately gets to Chicago, realizes that his wife is gone, so then he heads to Denver. He actually ends up getting to Denver first. And he like wants to send a like letter to his wife, and they're there, and they're like, nope, secrecy says you can't. Meanwhile, Sam knows that Barbara's like, married and is all torn up about the fact that her husband's still not back, and there's a good chance he's dead, and so Sam just keeps trying to like get her to go out with him. So they're like getting onto this boat that's gonna take them like part way to Denver, and the lizards like bomb it, and the like sailor that they were just talking to gets like shredded right in front of them. So they both like flip out, and then like in a fit of passion, they just go and do it. So she gets like super angry and isn't like talking to him, and then eventually she like gets over it, and then they become like a couple. And then she's like, "Yeah, my husband's definitely dead, so let's just get like married." So she like marries Sam, and then gets like pregnant, and then all the while he's at Denver, and they're not letting him send like a message back to his wife to be like, "I'm alive." So like they end up coming back into Denver, and her husband's there, and she's like, "Oh, this is awkward." Yeah, so like I married this dude, and I'm pregnant. So her husband like didn't particularly handle that well, and like went off the deep end. But this whole time, like, all right, I understand her problem, but like this whole time I was like, wow, Sam Yeager is kind of like a scumbag. I don't know. Like he just the basic premise that started Sam Yeager was just not something I was like excited about. And then they kind of like made him into the hero of the story, kind of. They kind of did that in the Colonization series too, but it was like way more so. And he like never really struck me as all that interesting of a character. So we go into the final book, and like he's the hero of the story now. And they're like negotiating with the race on their home planet, trying to like get I don't even know what they're trying to get, like equal treatment. They like the race doesn't consider any of the other like governments legitimate, but because the other governments had like nuclear bombs, the race was like forced to work with them because they didn't want to destroy the planet. But even then, the race still doesn't want to be like, oh yeah, like we're gonna treat you like equals. The race wants to be like, well, you're barbarians. So they're like trying to negotiate like equal treatment, and like autonomy, I guess. And the race doesn't want to do it. So like the whole book, like 600 pages of the book are these like pointless negotiations that take place over like the course of 2 years, but like no progress is made. So like the characters develop, and you get to see like the perspectives of some other people and stuff like that, but just nothing is happening. Like absolutely nothing is happening in the book. And then the race starts becoming like convinced that they're never going to be able to get what they want out of the humans, and that the humans are going to eventually like keep like radically increasing in power. So the race starts considering that like maybe they should just destroy the humans. So it starts like looking like it's going to go into like this, you know, war again. And then like another human ship just shows up, and it's like a faster than light ship, which they were kind of like insinuating without like outright saying. That like the race like picked up some like research papers from the humans that maybe indicated that that's what's happening, and they were like looking into seeing if it could happen. So this like faster than light ship shows up at home, and then it's like, okay, all the like current people that you've been following this whole time are like being recalled to Earth, and you know there was like some minor drama like involved. And the like the members of the race realize that like the humans have a technology that they don't have, and now the humans are like legitimately more powerful than the race. And the book just kind of ends. like just nothing happened. No war happens. No like actual agreement is made or anything like that. It's just kind of everybody's just like, this isn't what I want, and then the book ends. Oh man, 6 more. That's kind of awesome. I think it's probably... Is it easier for me to just go backwards? Yeah, it's actually easier for me to go backwards. We're just gonna go backwards. So yeah, like, the book just ends. There was, like, no conflict in the book or anything. It's just like, wow. And then a whole bunch of the other characters that were, like, referenced at other points just didn't get, like, endings or anything. Like, I was just like, really? Like, one of the characters, he's just, like, you know, he retires. Sam Yeager retires. Another dude just kind of like retires. A lot of the people that were referenced in like the colonization books just like were never referenced again. Even like the situation on Earth wasn't even referenced. Like they didn't even spend any kind of time being like the Earth Empire is unified or anything like that. Just nothing was mentioned. It was just 600 pages of like the book saying to you that they were negotiating, but giving almost no details of those negotiations. It was just like the narration being like, And they negotiated. And they negotiated some more. So I was really disappointed with everything that happened in the final book. That final book, like, botched its ending so bad that, like, I almost wish I hadn't read the final... Like, I for sure wish I hadn't read the final book. But if I hadn't read the final book, there would have been, like, no ending whatsoever, and I would have been like, well, I need to know what happens. So if I hadn't read the final book, there would have been no ending, and I would have, like, hated the entire process. But the book, like, botched the ending so bad that I was just like, I don't even know. I don't even know. I don't, like... If I knew that ending was going to be so bad, I might not have read the series. But I you know what, I say that, but I totally would have read the series because the series was actually super interesting and super enjoyable by itself. It's just like the ending was just so bad. I was so disappointed. I was so disappointed. But yeah, because those books were like massive and I've been reading other things and stuff like that, that took up like an enormous amount of my time. I also, I got the first 4 books for my Kindle, so I was able to, like, read them on my phone. And then I got the last 4 books as, like, physical copies of books, which I don't normally do because I don't like touching paper. And I find it uncomfortable to be reading books. I think I got the 6. Let me double check and see where we're at. Make sure we're done here. Awesome, we're done. Alright, so we're going to go turn this quest in then. Yeah, so I don't know, I was just like just disappointed all around. Just disappointed all around. So yeah, I mean, like, I definitely still read it again, but it was whatever. It cost me a decent penny too. Probably spent 8 books. Not all of them were $8. Let's say like average at $5. So I don't know. I spent like $40 on all the books. I don't know. It was a decent amount of enjoyment, and like I'll always fondly remember it. I feel like if that last book was way better, it would have definitely been in like one of those like top stories that I've consumed. And that's what I consider it, by the way. Like, I don't consider it like books I've read. I say like stories I've consumed, because that's why I'm reading a book, not for the sake of reading, but for the sake of, you know, getting a story. Which is why I don't read like instruction manuals. The act of, you know, combining letters on pieces of paper in my mind so that they become words isn't something that I like actively enjoy. It's consuming the story that I like. And I can get stories from books, or I can get them from TV shows or animes or movies or like manga and stuff like that too. And that's the thing I really enjoy, is like consuming a story. And a huge amount of my enjoyment for these things too was the fact that it was a long story, because I like long stories. We're going to Port Hope. So yeah, it was enjoyable, but I was like sad about that. But yeah, I was able to consume the story. I'm happy that I consumed the story, as disappointing as it ultimately ended up being. So, yeah. Sorry, I didn't actually mean to talk about that this entire time, by the way. I meant to just mention that, like, lightly. And then I had some other things I wanted to talk about that I'm just obviously not going to get to. So I'm probably going to just immediately make another Leaf video after this, so I can switch topics. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I don't like doing that for the most part, though, because I like to, I try to put, like, 2 to 3 videos up, like, a day. But I don't like putting 2 of the same, like, videos one after another. Because, the way that it alerts people to the fact that, like, I'm, putting the videos up, I think a lot of times, because I've noticed that whenever I put, like, 2 Leaf videos up one after another, the second one gets a much larger amount of views than the first one. And I think what's happening is people aren't realizing the first video went up, and they're only viewing the second one because it only alerts them to one. So I don't like putting 2 Leaf videos up in a row, but I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm gonna do it anyway. But let's get our task reports in. Okay, this time you'll just get an experience reward, no points for a society if you already gained enough points for your level range. As a boss of yours. Alright. Let's task. I think I have mammoths and badgers currently, right? Killing in the name of... Yeah, I have mammoths and badgers. Can I do termites again? Or let's just do apes. Yes. Yeah, so we took apes. And the question is, what do I want to go task next? That person has the Alright, level 102. That's a little bit reasonable. I was like, that person was moving slow, so they looked like they were kind of low level. But that character has the, what was that, the Barbarian or the Druid outfit? I forget which one. But I remember that one being, like, moderately annoying to get. So yeah, I'm just gonna go, dump my loot. Probably take some, whatchamacallit, spears out, and then we're gonna head up, start another video up in, Banatoa. I don't even know. Ape Place. The Ape City. Good enough. Alright, folks. Actually, I'm going to end here, and then we'll just go into the next video at that point. So, hey, folks. Alright, like, favorite, comment, subscribe. Check me out on Patreon, Twitter, and Facebook. I will, in fact, see you folks later. Good night.